Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. Another week and another opposition preview this week. I'm happy to say I'm joined by Nicky from West Ham Fan TV. Nicky, thanks for coming on the channel, mate. Firstly, of course, West Ham, it's been quite a bit of a roller coaster, hasn't it, the last couple of seasons? Our former manager, David Moyes, obviously took you to that fantastic Conference League win, but surely bringing Lopetegui in, you will have been hoping for a little bit better than 14th, which is where you are currently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we would have been hoping for a lot better. It's not going too well. It's not going too well at the minute, Steve, I must admit. Thanks for having me on, by the way. Yeah, it has been a bit of a roller coaster, but football is a roller coaster, and supporting West Ham is never an easy ride. It's never been an easy ride. I wasn't expecting it to be an easy ride. That's not what we signed up for when we start supporting these clubs. So, listen, although it's tough at the moment, I've seen it all before, and I'm sure we'll be okay. But stuff isn't going too well at the moment. No, you're right.
No, definitely not. I mean, of course, losing to Nottingham Forest is seems to be this season not too much of a mean feat. I mean, they're doing really well, third in the table at the minute, but still 3-0 defeat. It's got to be. It's as you said, when you support a team like West Ham or Everton, and the situation that these two clubs find themselves in at the moment, it can be very, very frustrating as well, isn't it? Surely when you think that on the pitch with the players that you've got, you'd fancy yourself against the Nottingham Forest side.
Listen, they're no mugs, Forest. I said that. But I'm going to be honest, Steve. I went into the game, and you can look at my two previews. I'm just about to upload something called the breakdown. And I fully expected us to lose there. I fully expected us to lose. I wasn't convinced by the Manchester United win. Manchester United were poor. And they've been poor for a long time, but they could have been beating us by a long shot by half time. So, I said we'd go there and lose 3-0. We went there and lost 3-0. I'm just not convinced about anything at the moment that's going on in the club. I'm not convinced that we're going in the right direction. I'm not convinced that Lopetegui is quite the man to motivate these players. I was hoping that it would be the case, and I've seen some great punditry by someone called Rory Jennings this week. I'm sure you know Rory, saying that, look, although we were justified in asking for David Moyes to step down and to go on, this is not what we signed up for, which is what the case is. You want to progress, you want to go forward. It isn't working at the moment, and I'll be honest with you. I said at the beginning of the season, give him 10 games and see where he is. We look worse, and that's a damning indictment to it. The players look like they're losing faith by the week. They're getting frustrated. There's no fight there. There's no people playing for the badge. Normally solid and dependable players are going hiding. We have to go without Kudus again for another 2 games. We've just heard after this week. Lucas Paquetá's gone hiding. Jared Bowen seems to be struggling with the system. We've got no striker. The midfield doesn't seem to be working. It doesn't look good at the moment.
Well, I mean, I think you made some really good points there, Nicky, in that I think a lot of the clubs at the top of the table, the so-called Big Six, if you like, I think they look down on clubs like us for demanding better and not wanting to stay stagnant in keeping the same manager. And I do admire what West Ham did in the fact that they had to say to David Moyes, thanks, but no thanks. We really need to, of course, winning that trophy was absolutely huge, and I'm sure I'd bite your hand off for it right now. But I think when you have had some success, you can't sit back and, mull on that success and hope that you'll just never get any worse, but you do have to at some point try and take a step up. You mentioned there Lopetegui and how you think maybe he hasn't been the step up. What's really gone wrong with him? What does he not connect with the supporters? Does he not a West Ham type of manager?
I just think it's a lot of the same. A lot of the same sort of stuff. It's same as Moyes, very pragmatic. Not a forward-thinking manager. Likes a lot of possession, but we don't do anything with it. Doesn't seem like anyone's really got any coalition about what you're going. You look at the way that Forest attacked and defended together. and the way that West Ham did the other day, it was like chalk and cheese. You know, this doesn't look like anything's fitting together. And listen, I know sometimes you've got to give the manager time, but you know, the fact of the matter is we haven't got time to give him. We haven't got time if we want to keep on progressing, because he's going to have another transfer window. I doubt very much there's going to be very much more money. He's brought in some of the players that he wanted. We've got rid of a lot. There was a very stagnant squad there. But you look at it on paper, and you're thinking to yourself, like the likes of Kilman coming in, Rodriguez, you know, Nicholas Fulkrug, Jimmy, I call him Jimmy Somerville, but Crescencio Somerville. And you think to yourself, yeah, you know, with the players that were already there, there's a basis of a good squad there, but none of it's working. And he's not getting the best of it. It doesn't seem like he knows his best side. Listen, the whole setup changed when Moyes left. And it's tough. It's tough at the moment because I can't see it getting any better, and it might be too late. You know, with the clubs, like, you know, you made a good point there. The top six want you to stagnate. They do, of course, they want you to stagnate because they want to keep in the top six. Look, that's what's best for them. That's what's best for the league, in terms of, you know, selling the Premier League. So they don't want people like West Ham or Everton or, you know, so be it Fulham or, you know, Nottingham Forest, let's say, to take that step up, because it will knock one of their, you know, so-called star boys out of the equation. So yeah, they don't want you to step up. Look, let's go Man United, for instance. Man United have been rubbish for a long time. I remember the Man United fans telling me last season, you know, be careful what you wish for when he says when you don't want Moyes back in there. Would they take him back? Would they? Of course they wouldn't.
I see what you mean completely. Yeah,
Yeah, because he's not good enough for them. He's not good enough for what they want to achieve. And you know, listen, it's a pipe dream. It is a pipe dream to get to that top six of the Premier League, and the Premier League every year make it more tough, and more, you know, more hoops to jump through, and more, you know, more unlikely that anyone will break into that top six past their chosen six. So you have to progress, and if you don't progress, listen, a season finishing 14th with them players are not going to be there next year, and it's going to start to be a whole new rebuild again. And all of that progress that you made, the trophy, you know, the sixth place finishes, the 3 or 4 seasons in Europe, it all goes to pot if you don't keep on going forward, you know. So listen, I think West Ham need to make a decision soon.
I see what you mean completely, Nicky, and it reminds me a lot of when Marco Silva came into Everton in 2018, where we had Sam Allardyce in just towards the end of the season, just to steady the ship a little bit. And we chose to go out and have a forward-thinking, pragmatic manager. And I think it was the right decision, definitely, for the club, because I think we would have ended up in the situation that we're in now, just, you know, 5 or 6 years earlier, if we'd had to stuck with someone like Allardyce or got Dyche in around that point. But you have to have a forward-thinking way of going about it, and you can't sit on it. It can't sit on any success, because you will lose it if you don't constantly keep moving forward. And I think with Silver, it's a similar thing for you guys with Lopetegui, in that maybe he just doesn't connect with the club as much as, you know, West Ham and Everton, two quite similar fan bases in terms of always wearing your heart on your sleeve, always wanting maximum effort and wanting to see quality in the players. And I think for a manager like Lopetegui, maybe it just isn't working. But let's move on to Everton. Of course, we've been a bit wishy-washy this season. We've had good results, bad results, really bad results. And of course, and now a lot of the fans are losing hope completely in Sean Dyche that he's going to even keep his job past the end of his contract this summer. But what have you thought of us this season?
I'll be honest. Every season, it looks like the chips are stacked more against Everton. You know, I thought Dyche was a good appointment, but let's be blunt. The past couple of seasons, you've escaped by being in the league by the skin of your teeth, and it seems to be getting tougher and tougher. And listen, the league hasn't made it any easier on you either. You know, so I think what he done last year, I think when you got deducted those points, he was in a good run of form. You know, you'd just beaten us at the London Stadium. You know, and you'd amassed a good amount of points, and then you sort of got that 10 that got reduced to, was it 6 or 4?
Yeah, it was 6, and then we had another 2 taken off us as well.
2 taken off, yeah. So, like, you know, for teams like Everton that seem to be battling in the courtrooms as well as on the football pitch, it's always going to be tough. Every season you seem to lose another key player. Like Onana went this year. Although I know he wasn't playing too well for you last year, but you haven't seemed to. It's got the same quality. I'm not going to say that you got bad players in, but not the same quality, and it's getting tougher and tougher for Everton to buy them sort of players. But listen, if anything, Everton have fight their way out of it, and that's what scares me coming to London Stadium this week is that if you start fighting, because we are a wounded dog, and we're sitting in the corner licking our wounds at the minute, and if Everton come in fighting like I know they can, like any Sean Dyche team can, they could walk away 3 points at the London Stadium, and that would further put detriment to what we're trying to do. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that would move you above us.
To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if we went on and got a win this weekend. But I said the same thing last weekend against Southampton. Southampton playing by far the poorest team in the league this season, and we just didn't have enough quality to put the ball in the net, and they go down the other end and get a goal. So I think it's a combination of not having enough quality in the players that we can bring on, or have it's great having squad depth, but when the depth is no better than the players that are starting, or even the ones starting are better than the ones on the bench, then that makes it a problem. And also, I think Sean Dyche is a very, very stubborn manager in terms of his approach. He will keep it exactly the same no matter who you're playing. And that's really been our downfall the past couple of weeks. And just maybe having a little change here or there, sticking an extra man up front, or starting with a player who maybe isn't 100% can make the difference. But let's go back to West Ham and talk about, you mentioned, sorry, Nicky, go ahead.
Sorry, Steve. I think that's the same sort of thing we had with David Moyes. Moyes was very much the same. David Moyes, stubborn manager, doesn't like to change it, likes to play one way, and he will play that way regardless. Whether it's working, whether it's not working, he'll just keep on banging at the door. And it's the league is changing at a vast pace. And that's why you see managers like Nuno Espirito Santos flourishing, because he changes his philosophy with every game. And he looks at the game and plays the game rather than plays the tactic. So the league's it's very tough at the moment in the Premier League.
We're seeing a lot of, I think it's really been very obvious to see the drastic changes every single season now in how you are successful. It used to be that you could have 5 or 6 years at the top doing the same thing and you'd get the same results. Nowadays it's completely different. I think
different.
Of course, we've got the new owners who are pretty close to coming in now, the Friedkin Group. And for me, I think when you get somebody like that in, like a new owner, a new company to own you, it's less about money. It's less about throwing money at the situation. It's more about carefully picking who's going to be in charge of which area. And I think that's what has been missed on Everton the past couple of seasons, is that there is no identity whatsoever. That's the real problem. There's no identity. There's no, this is who does this job, this is who does that job. It makes me wonder now that if Sean Dyche was to be sacked, who would be sacking him? Would it be Farhad Moshiri? Would it be Kevin Thelwell, the director of football?
Yeah.
We don't know who works for who at our club anymore, and it's really become a dire place to be. And the only hope really is that a new proven manager with far more quality can come in the summer when Dyche leaves, and the new stadium can hopefully give the supporters and the players a lift.
Well, I was just about to say, talking from experience, you need to be going in. I mean, we went in there with, on the back of a really good season. They're never easy transitions like that. It's unfamiliar. It's unfamiliar for everyone. It's unfamiliar for the players. It's unfamiliar for the fans. And if you're going in there on the back of a negative, you definitely don't want to be going into that new stadium. That's that would be disastrous. But even if you go in there in the Premier League, you want to be going there with a positive mindset, with something to look forward to in the future. Because if you don't, it can go downhill very quickly. Because it's unfamiliar, because it's not the same. Some people don't like change, and they're tough stadium moves. They're not easy. They're not easy. At the best of times. So, listen, I hope for the sake of Everton, I think Everton are a fantastic football club. I think they're steeped in history. So I hope that you can get back to where you are, and at least you know pulling your punches in the top flight, because it would be disastrous if we lost an Everton, which has been a staple for the league for a long time.
Oh yeah, I think just before we move on to talk about this Saturday, the one thing I really want to say is, and it's been so obvious with the likes of Newcastle, West Ham, of course, going on to win the Conference League, Aston Villa now are bossing it in Europe. I think the point that has been so obvious to me is it's so easy to be good at football these days. It's
Yeah.
so easy to finish high up in this division that it's too easy to say, maybe next season we'll have a go at it. Maybe next season. It's the equivalent of life's too short, and that you can do it this season if you want to. Look at,
Well,
Forest now. Who knows what will happen with Forest before the end of the
no,
season? But
I
you
think
know,
Aston
you
Villa.
can do it, can't you?
Aston Villa are the perfect example. They're the perfect
Mm,
example. When Gerrard was in charge, they couldn't get a win for love nor money. They made one
mm,
change, and the whole, what was that? 18 months ago,
mm.
2.5 years
Yeah.
ago. I can't remember what it was now. Maybe 2 years ago, and they
It's so
sacked.
it's so forgettable, isn't it? Because it's such
Yeah,
a huge
it's
jump.
such a
You
huge
know.
jump. Yeah, they went from relegation candidates. I mean, realistic relegation candidates. Couldn't get a win for love nor money. Emery come over with the same squad of players, without many changes, transformed them overnight, got them to the Conference League. They get to the semi-final of the Conference League last year, but at the same time, they're playing fantastic football in the Premier League. Got themselves top four by merit, on merit as well. And now you think to yourself, even fell into the trap thinking, they're going to fall off now. It's going to be too much to play Champions League and keep that form up in the league. Listen, I know they've just had a very heavy defeat away at Tottenham, but Tottenham are a funny side. But I'm sure if you asked an Aston Villa fan now, was that that one change the best thing for your club? Of course it was. They're beaten by Munich. I think they're the top of the Champions League, the whole of the Champions League.
I think they just fell off to Liverpool like
Just fell
yesterday,
off
but
to
they're playing
Liverpool, yeah.
again this evening, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
so but
mm,
so it just goes to show, like, one change can do the whole thing, but that change has got to be the
100%.
right change,
It
and that.
it makes you realise that it's not worth biding your time and trying to stay in the division.
No, no, no,
We've
right?
had 2 relegation scraps, and we're never any better the next season. I wanted us to throw caution to the wind and just go for it the next season, but we didn't
Yeah, yeah,
because Sean Dyche has been brought in and was given a job and to do, and he's done that job very well. But he doesn't do anything more than what he's been brought in to do. In terms of this weekend, of course, you mentioned Kudus there, a couple of players that obviously you're going to be without Kudus again, who's been really important for you this season. You mentioned a
yeah.
couple of players not quite fitting into Lopetegui's system. How do you think you're going to line up this Saturday?
Well, I think I'm going to be honest with you, Steve. I don't know, because we've got suspensions now. I think Paquetá's suspended. Um, he got. I think he's got 5 yellow cards. I might be right in saying that, but I'll have to double check that. But I'm pretty sure he has. Alvarez is pretty much suspended now. So your guess is as good as mine. What he's going to do here, and I'll be honest with you, like in terms of predicted starting 11s, this has got to be the hardest manager in the league to predict a starting 11, because you never know what formation he's going to go with. It's always defensive, it's never attacking formations. But in terms of, like, you go to Forest last week, we start without a striker, and we also start with 5 at the back. We've never done that before. So your guess is as good as mine in terms. I would expect it to be Fabianski, Emerson, Kilman, um, to Debo. I think he might go back in for Wan-Bissaka, and I'm pretty sure Antonio will start up front. But the rest of them is up in the air, mate. I don't even know who's available. It's going to be a pretty patched up side this week.
Mhm. He's always been a massive danger man, Mikel Antonio. Whenever, and people say to me, but I don't know. I think it shows when you do videos like this how different perspectives from different fans can be. Because every time in these videos I ask for one player that the oppositions are looking out for as an Everton danger man, they always say Dominic Calvert-Lewin,
Yeah,
and he's the exact opposite of a danger man at the moment, and most
Yeah,
Evertonians would say you don't have to worry about him because
yeah.
the system he's playing in just doesn't suit him whatsoever. But of course, for me, I think me watching West Ham, I'd probably say Antonio. But would you agree with that? Because I think sometimes when you watch a player in and week out, you see more of the bad stuff than the good stuff.
It's yeah, we definitely see more of the bad stuff from Mikel, but it depends what Mikel turns up. He's still got it in a locker. I got to admit, he's still got it in a locker, and he's a nuisance. He's an absolute nuisance. But sometimes he turns up, sometimes he don't. I would say more likely to be a threat this week would probably be Somerville, and I would say Bowen because he needs to step up. If he don't step up, there's going to be big question marks over him. He's the captain now, so I would pinpoint them as two as a danger man, but that ain't saying much. Mikel's still got it in the locker, as I say. He seems to withhold every striker option that comes along. No matter who we sign and who we get in, he always seems to be the one that we revert to. So, he must be doing something right, Mikel. But there's two different versions of Mikel. There's a version that can run around and looks like me on the football pitch, and then there's a version that runs around and looks like Pele. There's two different versions. It all depends. He can be a danger. Of course, he can be a danger. But is he the one that's going to turn up this week? I hope so. I hope so.
It's confusing, isn't it? And it's very similar with Calvert-Lewin. Is there any
Yeah,
players that you've watched at Everton this season who you'd very much take in the West Ham side at the minute?
I haven't watched much. I'm going to be honest. I haven't watched much of Everton this year. It's one of them ones where, when you're losing at the bottom, you don't want to watch fucking football.
Yeah.
I just switch it off, and I want to, once we've lost for the weekend, I want to switch it off. But I haven't really had a look at Everton this year. I'm going to be honest. Apart from the flashes at the beginning of the season where it was the 3-1 up and 4-3 down, and twice on the spin. I haven't watched a lot, so I'm not going to sit here and say honestly. I would obviously take Calvert-Lewin, just based on previous seasons, but this season I won't be able to tell you. I'm going to be honest. I would not be able to say anything.
Mm-hmm. And how'd you picture it going this week? Because I think it could be a bit of a coupon buster, this one, couldn't it? It could go either way.
I have to.
But
I have
any
to be careful
predictions?
here. I have to be careful because I've been pretty right in what I've predicted for West Ham, and it hasn't been good. Um, we could lose this one. We could really lose this one, and I think it would be the nail in the coffin. I'm going to say a draw. I'm going to say a draw. I'm going to sit on the fence and say a draw. But
Yeah.
if Everton turned up, rocked up, and walked away 2-1, 3-0 winners, I would not be surprised.
Do you know what? I'm going to go 0-0 this weekend. I think
0-0.
both
Yeah,
teams
yeah,
are
that's
just
a
going to
fair
cancel
squad.
themselves out.
I'm not looking forward to it, Steve. You know
Neither
what I
am
mean?
I.
Like, it's horrible, isn't it, when you're in this sort
Yeah.
of form,
Yeah.
and the weekend's creeping up and you're thinking, oh my God, this could be another nail in the coffin for whatever we're trying to do. And you're nervous. Everton are one of them teams. Like even last year, we was doing okay last year, and Everton rocked up and they beat us 1-0. So yeah, it's always a tough game, Everton. They always seem to be a bogey team of ours. I know we've changed it around a little bit in the last few years, but we didn't used to get results against you very well in very good results off you for what seemed like an eternity. So I'm worried. I'm worried about this one because Everton are the type of team that could rock up and that really will put the eyes on Lopetegui.
Yeah, I remember it always used to be Lukaku would always score against
Oh,
you, and it'd always be
yeah.
it took you years to get points at Goodison, didn't it? And then
Yeah,
there was the
years,
one
years.
where I think we 2-0 up and you beat us 3-2. I think it was the Payet season with
Yeah, 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 yeah.
with Slav in charge. So it can go either way. And I mean, last year I wasn't expecting us to rock up there and beat you, but I think we beat you during the COVID season there as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, do you know what? We don't usually go to these new grounds and do well, but it's been one that we've done quite well at. But we'll see. It's going to be a very, very hard one to predict, and I'm not looking forward to it. Just before we move on to our quiz that we always do the lineup quiz to finish off. Make sure you get your comments down in the comment section below. Players who played for both West Ham United and Everton. And after the quiz, me and Nicky will go through some and reminisce, and we'll see how many you could get. Right. Nicky, go back to the we mentioned before, actually, the first season at the London Stadium, this fixture.
Yeah.
West Ham United versus Everton, 22nd of April, 2017. It finished
Oh,
0-0. How many of that West Ham side could you name now?
a memorable one then. I'll give it a go. I mean, what do you want me to give me a number? Do you want me to give
I'll
you a
give
number?
you. Yeah, I mean, if you can give a lot of these are quite memorable. There's a couple that
I'm going to say 7. I'm going to say 7.
you're going to
I
go
reckon I can get
7.
7.
Let's
Yeah.
see if you can get 7 because there's some pretty memorable players in this one.
All right. So the first season at the London Stadium, I'm going to go first name Adrian.
Yeah,
I think he
Adrian was in goal. Yeah,
Cresswell would have been playing unless he was injured.
he came on. I don't know why, but he came on for a midfielder.
Must have been coming back from injury. Dimitri Payet.
No, so this was in the April, so it was just after Payet had left in
Oh,
the
so he's
January.
gone. He's gone by January, right? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Okay, Cheku Kiyate.
yeah,
I
he
would
was the
say
player who
starting.
came off for Aaron Cresswell.
Andy Carroll.
No, Carroll wasn't there. I'm not sure
No, Carroll.
if Carroll was at West Ham at this point. He might have been, but
Yeah,
it might have been.
he definitely
Yeah,
was there. He definitely was. Let's think of defenders. Who would have been our right back at the time?
there's
Jesus
one who
Christ.
there's one defender who I've never heard of. There's one
Reed,
defender who I forgot played for West Ham, and there's 2 real West Ham players.
Winston Reed.
Yeah, Winston Reed's one of them.
How many I got there? 3. Jesus Christ,
You've
this ain't
got
going as good as I
4.
thought. Who would have been the other defender? So Reedy. Wasn't that
Another
Nolan was
really another quite memorable West Ham central defender.
memorable.
Yeah, one that people could maybe say.
James
Yeah,
Collins.
yeah,
James Collins.
that's it.
James Collins. Yeah.
I don't really remember him playing for anyone else, Collins, and he played for he
Villa.
played for
He
you.
played
Must
for
have been
Villa.
about 10 years. He played for you.
Yeah, he was brilliant. I loved him. He came back. He went to Villa for a good spell. So who else would he been playing? Was there someone like Gokhan Torre playing at that point?
No.
No.
There's a couple. I'd say there's 2 of these I've never heard of, a midfielder and a striker who I think I can remember him, but it's a very, very tough one. I think
Was
West
it
Ham
Caleri?
signed. Sorry.
Caleri?
Yeah.
Did Caleri play?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he was sort of signed to replace Payet, wasn't he? In the January or something like that.
Oh God, I don't know. Yeah, Caleri was a striker. He was shocking. He was
Yeah,
shocking. We had that
forget
Italian striker as well, but I forget his name. These are very forgettable seasons, by the way.
Oh,
These ones,
Zaza, Simone
Zaza,
Zaza
yeah,
was the
Zaza,
Italian,
yeah,
yeah.
absolute fucking useless. He was. Yeah.
You've got a player who isn't playing in the Premier League anymore, but his brother is.
Was Robert Snodgrass playing by that point?
No, I think Snodgrass might have moved on to Hull at this point.
Okay.
Or it might have been just before. He might have been
So
in
his
the.
brother's still playing in the Premier League.
Let me just check. So we've got the bench here. No, Snodgrass wasn't even in the squad.
Okay. I'm just Diafra Sacco. Did he play at some point?
Sacco actually came on for Caleri, which just shows that what you were saying then about him not being great.
Yeah, fucking hell, I can't even remember. Who would have been our wingers at the time? Who was we playing up the wings?
Well, one's quite
Lanzini? Was Lanzini playing?
Yeah. I was just going to mention
Yeah.
there because I think after that Tottenham goal during COVID, it's very hard to forget Manuel Lanzini now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he was brilliant for us, Lanzini.
And then there's 2. One of them I can vaguely remember. The other one I have absolutely no clue.
No clue.
And then one of the centre backs. So you've got I'll give you a clue because you're on 9 at the moment from both the bench and the starting 11. You've got a Norwegian centre back. You've got a Congolese, I think that is, left back, and you've got a Swiss midfielder.
Fucking hell, Congolesian left back.
He's quite memorable at West Ham because he was in a really famous YouTube.
Oh, Masuaku.
Yeah,
Masuaku. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Arthur Masuaku. Fucking hell, was he there that early?
Yeah,
I didn't even realise he was there that early. Norwegian centre half. Did you say?
I've never heard of this guy, by the way.
Fucking no idea.
Havard Nordtveit.
Nordtveit. Yeah. I was going to say Nordtveit. He was actually a midfielder, but he did play centre half. Used to play for Arsenal.
Uh-huh.
And what did you say? Who else was it?
You've got
They
one left if you can get all 12. Well, mind you, you'll get 11 if you get this because I gave you Nordvite.
okay.
A Swiss midfielder.
Swiss midfielder, that would be Fernandez.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
well done, Nicky. You know, you're 11.
Yeah,
And
that would be
considering there
Fernandez.
was only 2 subs on the day, you managed to get both of them as well.
Yeah.
It's mad when you look back. I mean, this wasn't even that long ago in my head, but Adamola Luckman just came 10th in the Ballon d'Or, was playing for Everton, came
Yeah.
on for Idrissa Gueye, who'd,
Yeah, it's
who'd
crazy.
left us and then come back. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy.
it's a
I mean,
funny one, but
that's the thing about 10 years in. That's probably not even 10 years ago, but 10 years in
no,
football is chalk and cheese, isn't it? Like when you look
it
at the
is.
squads, everything can change. I don't think, apart from Cresswell, I don't think there's one left in there. I can't.
And then, of course, like we do, I always ask for the comments from the watchers about players who played for both teams, and then now we can reminisce. Hopefully, you got some in the comment section down below. Nicky, do you want to start us off because there's a couple of pretty famous names here?
I'm going to go Tony Cottee.
Yeah,
Tony
he's
Cottee.
probably the most famous one.
Yeah,
Is that just before you? Is that a bit because that's around my dad's time, so it's a bit before
No.
me.
I saw Tony. I saw Tony play the second stint when he came back. I think he left us in about 87. I think he come back in about 94. I see him in the 94 stint. I was a bit young for the 80s stint. I still see Tony about now. I still see him quite regularly as it happens. He still comes over to West Ham. He's very much connected. Fantastic player. What a goal scorer. I mean, really.
Yeah, he's very fondly remembered at Everton as well.
Yeah, top goal scorer.
Yeah, we've got another Cockney lad as well, Graham Stewart, who's very, very famous at Everton now. He does a lot of work at the club, but I think sometimes it just a club can stick to you. But I think West Ham's his club, really, Tony. But he's very well remembered, and I know my dad specifically says that he was a really good goal scorer. He come just after we got rid of Gary Lineker, so
right,
So but he had big boots to fill. But of course, there's also a former manager as well who managed West Ham managed West Ham, played for West Ham and Everton. Slaven Bilic.
Yeah, Slaven Bilic.
Yeah,
I was a kid when he left. I'm going to be honest. I was about 10, 12. In between that.
Well, I think he's one who maybe suffered through playing with poor players with Everton because we had some decent players. We had Danny Cadamarteri, Slaven Bilic, Olivier Dacour, but really we were quite poor going into that. There's Nicky as well. What's the view on him from West Ham because he's quite fondly remembered at the Blues.
He was awful here. I got to say he was awful here. Yeah, I'm gonna chuck in another name for you. This is an abstract name, Danny Williamson. Do you remember him? No,
might have been before my time. That.
Yeah, it was about in the 90s. He had to retire. I remember him, and I know he had to retire because he's actually my cousin's cousin. So he was in the family. So he was really well regarded down here at West Ham. Then moved to Everton for about £1 million. And he ended up sustaining a nasty injury and ended up running away to Germany so they couldn't stop paying him.
There you go, Nicky throwing in some names there. We've got Lucas Neal as well, Australian, one of the first Australians. One of the Australians who played for Everton and West Ham. We got two quite famous Evertonians as well, Don Hutchinson and David Unsworth.
Yeah. I used to love Unsworth. I had Unsworth on the back of my shirt when he came. I loved him. Yeah, I loved him.
We had Kurt Zuma. I was gutted when we didn't sign Zuma on a permanent, and he ended up obviously moving on to West Ham because I thought he was pretty good for us.
Yeah, decent player, really decent player. Who's the geezer that who come on the wing last year? Didn't quite work out for us. He ended up going back to Italy. He's a winger. What's his name? He played for you. Didn't make it for you either.
Vlasic. Nikola Vlasic, yeah. I never really understood him because every time he come on, he looked all right. But I think he just sort of fell out with the management, really, and it didn't quite work out for him, and he ended up at West Ham. But he's one of them. And, of course, David Moyes managed both clubs, famously managed 2 stints at West Ham. He might even end up managing another stint at Everton.
Yeah. Listen, I know it's for stability, when you want stability, he's the perfect man to bring him. You know, he just took us. Listen, I'll always be forever grateful for David Moyes. People think I'm not grateful to him. Forever grateful. You know, give me one of the best nights I've ever known as a West Ham fan. But you have to.
Yeah.
There is times when you have to move on, and it was, you know, it's going a bit stout. West Ham. Another West Ham player used to play for Everton, Enner Valencia.
Yeah, Enner Valencia. Come on and scored a couple of goals for us every now and then, but he was always better for West Ham, wasn't he? He played in that really good season that West Ham had with the last season at Upton Park, and I think we were sort of thought that we might be getting that Enner Valencia, and we never really did. I think there's a couple more that maybe played 60s and 70s, but that's before both of our times.
Oh, yeah,
And just before we finish, Nicky, Mount Rushmore, it's a concept that, you know, a lot of people have been speaking about on the internet recently. If West Ham had the four most important names, who you had to put, say, for example, on a West Ham Mount Rushmore, who would you go for? Because there's one who's obvious, very, very obvious, a sort of fantastic goal actually on Twitter yesterday that he scored. I can't remember who it was against. But of course, I'll let you say it.
The four for me, the four most important names in our club's history, I think, was got to be Bobby Moore. He's got to be there,
yeah,
front and centre. Right next to him, not far away, is Billy Bonds. Without a shadow of a doubt. Trevor Brooking. Because of, you know, I think the significance of winning that cup when we was in the second division, beating Arsenal. Fantastic player. And for me, just for me, this is my personal addition. I think Paolo Di Canio, I think, goes in there for me. He was my favourite player ever, you know, in terms of the skill. You'll know him quite well for the one that picked up the ball when he could have scored when the keeper went down. But in terms of passion and all that, you know, that's my personal addition. So if I was to make a Mount Rushmore, that would be my four.
Yeah, I actually seen, speaking of Di Canio there, I was watching an Ellis Platten video yesterday, and he was at Swindon Town. And there's a calf just outside Swindon's ground, and I think they've named a pie after him, the Di Canio pie or something like that.
Yeah,
but
probably all sorts of nonsense in there.
Yeah, definitely one of the big characters in football, wasn't he, Paolo Di Canio? But what a player on his day. Unfortunately, I missed all of those great players in the 90s, the likes of Wrighty and Di Canio and all these brilliant players that I wish I got to see, but I never did. But thanks so much for coming on, Nicky. Really good chat with you.
No worries at all. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, and make sure you go check out West Ham Fan TV. We're going to be doing a video for their channel as well as soon as we're done with this. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Toffee Blues, and we'll see you in the next one.